Our last game, guys, is the Dolphins at Texans. Not a good day for Tua and the Dolphins offense. We'll get to all of that in just a second. A strange day, though, for Nico Collins. 4 catches, 6 targets, 17 yards. You're like, what? But he scores twice, Matthew.
This drives me crazy. I'm in a playoff league. I'm in a fantasy playoff against my buddy JJ Zachariasen. JJ does a great job, by the way. JJ had Nico Collins against me. Whatever. I have Joe Mixon against him. And Joe Mixon just...
Tough draw.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, really? Like in this crap game, like he gets 4 for 17, but 2 of them are touchdowns, and Joe Mixon does absolutely nothing? Really? Joe Mixon? Anyway.
5 catches.
Whatever. And by the way, I also have Derrick Henry in that league. We'll get to him in a second. And, bottom line is I need 34 points from Sam Darnold tonight.
Not impossible.
Not impossible, but it's looking like JJ's going to take care of me, unfortunately, in that league. What are you going to do?
The bigger story, Jay, is the Dolphins offense. I mean, this was a must-win game for their playoff hopes, and Tua looked bad. The 3 interceptions, nothing. We reverted back to the normal version of Tirico Hill this year, which has been nothing close to the player we're accustomed to seeing. And while that's happening, Jonnu Smith is the most productive guy in the offense.
Does Mike McDaniel think that Jonnu Smith is like 2006 Antonio Gates?
He
like,
loves
what's
him.
the obsession with Jonnu Smith? Like, I like Jonnu Smith, but why is he getting 11 targets?
It might be too. Listen, Jalen Waddle left this game early with an injury, so that's a narrow target tree as well. And they were chasing. They were just bad. This is just a bad day at the office for Tua and for Tyreek Hill. You know, they're home to San Francisco next week. I think you're still probably starting those guys. We'll get into it as we get into the week. But like just an 18% target share for Tyreek Hill. They just couldn't find a way to get him open, to scheme him open. Credit the Texans defense. They did a really good job of containing him. Stingley had
He was phenomenal.
He had a phenomenal game as well. This is the first game that Tyreek Hill's had since week 9 without an end zone target. Like, they just couldn't get anywhere close. Jonnu Smith is the only guy that does anything. It's crazy that in week 15, the number 1 tight end in fantasy is Jonnu Smith. I mean, at least for this week, right? I mean, like 28% target share. Since week 11, he's the best tight end in fantasy. He scores 19.8 fantasy points in this one. The other thing about Tua was like it was all dink and dunk stuff. Maybe, again, they were taking away all the deep stuff. His average depth of target was 4.6 in this one.
Which is strange because the Texans have given up a lot of explosive deep plays. Think about like what Anthony Richardson was doing against them, throwing it deep. So very strange game, and now their season is effectively over. Like, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Connor, any concern about Joe Mixon? Just to get back, again, my bitching aside, he's had under 11 fantasy points in 2 of the past 3 games. He's been below 2 yards per carry in 3 of the past 5. Next week, they're at Kansas City. Then they're home to Baltimore. This is somebody that's gotten a massive workload this entire season. He's a bit on the older side for a running back. Is he just wearing down, do we think?
I thought he was starting to at the end of the Cincinnati tenure. It doesn't mean he was not a starter, just not what he once was. But now the problem is, too, Matthew, like you look at these matchups that they have remaining, their offensive line's not good enough to overcome him being an average runner. Like, he's a good downhill, tough runner, but he's not a guy like a Jahmyr Gibbs or anyone in that mold where they make one guy miss and you blink and you're like, wow, how did he turn that into 25 yards? That's not Joe Mixon's game. So I don't think their line's good enough to support him in the higher tier matchups. And the Dolphins front doesn't have a lot of household names anymore, but they're competitive.
Right. The preseason argument for Joe Mixon was, listen, it won't be efficient, but he's going to get tons of volume. And he certainly did get tons of volume. That worked out. He was on the preseason love list. But the part that we were wrong about was like, oh, actually, he looked great. I mean, like he was official. Like, whoa, fountain of youth. What happened here with Joe Mixon? But maybe, like, as the season's gone on, they're wearing down because, again, he hasn't been the guy. They used him somewhat in the passing game. He gets 5 for 33, so there's a little bit of a floor there because they use him on third down. But I certainly, if you survive in the playoffs this week and you're moving on to next week, I think you have to lower your expectations for Joe Mixon going forward, given the recent production and the upcoming schedule. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.